Carl Jung on Friedrich Nietzsche. Recently, I got some videos in my newsfeed that claimed to be Carl Jung stuff, but weirdly sounded like the doublespeak nihilism for dummies, which is Friedrich Nietzsche. And weirdly, Carl Jung had a fascination with the extremely mentally ill Friedrich Nietzsche, which is a theory I had that Friedrich Nietzsche is extremely mentally ill, which is why he died going crazy. Thank you. Now, I'm just going to read what Carl said, or what they say Carl said. Carl Jung was profoundly influenced by Nietzsche, seeing him as a kindred spirit but also a cautionary tale, interpreting Nietzsche's descent into madness as an archetypal inflation. He failed to integrate his profound insights, and particularly concerning the death of God in the Dionysium aspects of life, leading to a dangerous imbalance between his inner world and reality. Jung felt a deep connection, even a fear of sharing Nietzsche's isolation, and built much of his own psychology, especially individualization and shadow work, in dialogue with Nietzsche's challenging ideas, viewing him as a precursor to modern psychological dilemmas, but ultimately needing a different, more integrated approach, or path, integrated path. And there's a wonderful video of Carl Jung giving Friedrich Nietzsche psychological help, and it says, is Zarathustra in the room with us right now? Key aspects of Jung's view on Nietzsche. Affinity and fear. Jung felt a strong pull of Nietzsche, recognizing a shared sensitivity and unique inner world, but also feared succumbing to similar fate, especially given Nietzsche's intellectual isolation and eventual psychosis. Nietzsche went crazy and died because of his philosophy. His philosophy is toxic. It is the wrong way to do everything. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Jung considered Nietzsche's Zarathustra a monumental work like his own Faust, but also saw in it morbid tendencies, recognizing Zarathustra as a figure grappling with the death of traditional values. Values over time change. Eventually, I look forward to when we value that all religion is pure fucking evil. That time will come. Archetypal inflation. Jung's central theory was that Nietzsche became possessed by an archetype like the Übermensch due to psych imbalance from rejecting spiritual foundations, leading to a break in reality. The Übermensch is a facade. It is a persona. It is made up. That is what that is saying. That is why his archetypal inflation, or his ego, inflated into the Übermensch. Dialogue with the death of God. Jung saw Nietzsche's declaration, God is dead, as a crucial cultural movement, prompting humanity to confront nihilism and create new meaning, a task Jung explored through individualization. Once again, everything Nietzsche says, the death of God and all that shit, the truth is I would argue, you want to talk about shadow work? Nietzsche was extremely jealous of nihilists because they were free from God. They were free from the Christian church. They were free from the Catholic church. They were free people. They didn't have to fear anything. Individualization versus willpower. The will to power. While admiring Nietzsche's focus on overcoming, Jung differed in emphasis the integration of the unconscious shadow through self-knowledge, individuation, rather than just the will to power, seeing Nietzsche's path as incomplete. Effectively arguing that Nietzsche's methods are not the appropriate methods, and they are not necessary. Also, they don't work. Which makes sense, because I've spoke about this multiple times in my videos. Nietzsche explored the terrifying depths in the productive nothing, but struggled to bridge the abyss, remaining trapped by immense psychological forces he unleashed. Friedrich Nietzsche managed to tap in to the shadow self, but he never mastered it. In fact, it consumed him. He became a disease. Explored the terrifying depths of productive nothing. But Jung sought to integrate these forces, the Dionysius and Apollonian, into the consciousness, whole personality, individualization, providing a path to live with the death of the old myth without succumbing to madness. Nietzsche went crazy from his philosophy and died. Okay. Carl Jung and Nietzsche handshook on one thing. There is a darkness in the human mind. It exists. Ornately, profoundly, it is an aspect of all people. This is why morals, values, traditions, thought processes, all these things are important, because they are the things that you hold dear. They are the things, and this is why your choices are some of the biggest choices in life. Because you are choosing actively, whether you know it or not, even if you choose passively, if you choose aggressively, you are choosing these things. You are choosing to make these choices. You are making these decisions. And the aspect of Carl Jung to understand the shadow self, the deeper meaning into it, is the true recognition that anybody great you know, you can be just as good. You can be just as powerful. You can be just as charismatic. There is no limit to anything that anybody can potentially do outside of capitalism, money, and a church that appoints itself oppressor to everybody else while screaming they're the victims in it. I believe 1,000,000% Carl Jung, because on the internet there's a lot of misinformation and fake videos. I've been getting a lot of fake Carl Jung videos out there about who Jung was and who he's not, but I believe the simple process of understanding the shadow self. That, yeah, there are things that are repressed in the darkness of our minds. I remember this book I read, and it was talking about how Catholics create sexual repression and how religion in itself is sexual oppression. And this is why they hate women, because women are divinely associated with sexuality. They create sexual oppression, and it's one of the biggest ways they control people. And when you repress these things, what comes out is something unnatural. Something that shouldn't be there to begin with. Because when you repress something, it eventually shows up in other forms. OCD, ADD, let's be honest, those things are caused by heavy metal poisoning, but it shows up in other psychotic behaviors. It shows up in other bizarre ways. It's not healthy to repress things, because what happens is it builds up and then it explodes outward. One of the things I remember discussing with the church leaders, because they were talking about, they have to go murder somebody, and they need it. And my theory was they're repressing something, and they are. They're repressing themselves, because the Ubermensch psychology is nothing but a persona. It is a boondoggle or a made-up concept, a false self. It is not who they are, but an imaginary form, which is what Carl Jung was getting at when he was talking about Nietzsche's psychosis. Nietzsche drove himself insane with his own destructive philosophy. That is what happened. And it is not to say, this is the thing about life and people and even the shadow self. There are no 100%. Friedrich Nietzsche could be right about a handful of things, but his philosophy overall is just stupid, and the way he carried it out is how an imbecile would carry it out. And I believe that's what that's what Carl Jung was getting at when he talks about Friedrich Nietzsche. Is, yeah, I've never agreed with the kindred spirit, because anytime you hear kindred spirit, it's a form of projection. Me and you are alike. No, 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 no. Every time anybody's ever done that to me, we are nothing alike. They're always extreme Republicans. They're always fucking narcissists. They're always bastards who only care about themselves and then scream they're the victims in it. Okay. And it is human nature to care about yourself. But it is not human nature to behave like a complete piece of shit and then scream you're the victim in it. Okay. Yeah. This is an important video for anybody that gets into Carl Jung, and you start running into Carl Jung videos that slowly start bleeding into pure nihilism. I believe nihilism, if we lived in a proper world, would be the definitive perfect psychology. Because it doesn't walk in fear. It accepts there are things you just can't control, and it removes fear. Now, Friedrich Nietzsche's mind was nothing but fear. It was controlled by inferiority and fear. That is why he needed to prove his genetics were superior, because he's inferior. That is why this church's crazy genetic program that they use to change their genetics to make them superior is an admission that they're inferior to begin with. You wouldn't need those things if you were superior to begin with. The reason you have a genetic program is because you're inferior and you know it. Okay. This all is super important for comprehending the psychology of man, in my opinion. Yeah. There's a lot of deep thought here on this subject. I didn't realize Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche were actually so closely related. That Carl Jung viewed Nietzsche as a visionary, and his vision created Nazi Germany. That's where Friedrich Nietzsche leads you. That is because that is what the philosophy does. It creates violent, stupid people. I don't believe Jung wanted violent, stupid people. Even when he talks about values are a societal concept. Okay, that's cool and everything, but I think most of the world mutually agrees, unless you're a member of this church, that murder is wrong, to some extent. Sometimes you just gotta kill a motherfucker. But it's that George Carlin, killing is wrong, kind of. Yeah.